Hello there, welcome to my YouTube channel Since Nightingale. In this tutorial video, I'm going to be showing you the secret to cutting and sewing this trendy bubu that is everywhere on Instagram. Let's go. So first off, what I did was to do a quick sketch of what I wanted the pattern to look like on the paper, and I already also inserted the markings to show the length that I'm going to be using for every part of this pattern. So I'm going to go back to my fabric now and cut out the neck measurement as well as the sleeve measurement and the back measurement. So first of what I did was to secure the back measurement. The back measurement for this person is 14 inches. 14 divided by 2 is 7 inches, and so I marked that on the fabric. Because I'm not going to be cutting out the armhole, there was no point for me to add sewing allowance to the back measurement. But if you're cutting out the armhole for a normal regular dress, you bear in mind to add the sewing allowance to it, which would have been 7.5 inches. 7.5 times 2 will give you 15 inches. So back to this design. The wideness of the neck area is 3.5 inches. I'm going to take my tape rule and mark 3.5 inches on the fabric. And you can remember the design that I showed you, or rather the sketch that I showed you on the paper that showed the depth of the neckline. So for this, we're doing a V-neck and not a round neck. For this bubu, the depth of the bubu neck is 8 inches. So I'm going to take my measuring tape again to the top of this, or the tip of this fabric, and mark 8 inches. So now I have marked this. I'm now going to take my short ruler to trace it from point A to point B, which is from the tip of the fabric downwards, following that part to give us the V shape. So having cut the V shape, I'm now going to flip this fabric backwards to be able to trace the neck depth or the neck measurement for the back of this bubu. Remember, this is a bubu and I've already opened up the sleeves area. So I'm going to mark the same 3.5 inches like I've done. The depth for this for me is 1 inch because I don't want it to be as deep as the front. This is a simple round curve, so I'm just going to take it from point A to point B to just have that curve. I flip it over, and now I'm going to now proceed to measuring the sleeves for this bubu. So I'm taking my tape rule now to get my sleeve measurement for the bubu. Remember, the back measurement is 7, which is 7 times 2, 14 inches. So up next, I'm going to proceed to measuring the sleeves measurement, or to marking the sleeves measurement. For this design, the sleeves measurement I'm going to be working with is 13 inches. 13 inches plus 2 inches sewing allowance will give me 15 inches. So I'm going to move the tape rule now to get 15 inches from that point that I've marked as 7. So I'm going to move the tape rule now forward. I've placed the 15 inches on where that 7 inches that I marked for the shoulder measurement is, and I'm going to now mark my 15 inches from there. So afterwards, I'm going to take my tape rule now to measure the wideness of the sleeves, right? Because this is not the usual sleeves. Remember, we're doing a bubu sleeve. So I'm going to take my tape rule now from the tip of the fabric and mark the wideness. The wideness I'm going to be working with is 14 inches, but I added 1 inch sewing allowance to make it 15 inches. So I want to take out the excess fabric on the other side, the portion I'm not going to be using. So I took my tape rule to get the measurements from the tip downwards, so that I can use my short ruler to trace out what I don't need again from this portion of the fabric. So I took my short ruler now and connected the markings that I had done across the fabric, so that I can have a defined sleeves, or rather have defined sleeves. So I've used my short ruler now to connect the markings. I'm now going to take out 2.5 inches from that sleeve so that I can have my bend when sewing. So I am taking out 2.5 inches from this bend. Depending on your choice, it could be inwards, it could be just 1 inch, but for me I'm using 2.5 inches because I'm not doing like a well-defined bubu sleeves. The wideness of the bubu for me is 20 times 2, which is 40. I want it to be 40 inches wide, so that's why I took out 2.5 inches. So I'm now going to take my measuring tape now to take out the excess for me, and then begin marking from that portion, that point where the bend is for the sleeves, downwards. So I'm connecting it. I'm now going to continue this process from top to the bottom. And now I'm going to place my brown paper to create that pattern that I had shown you, that I'd sketched on my drawing book earlier on for you to see. I'm using my bobbin pin now to secure this brown paper on the fabric, which is what I'm going to use to cut out the pattern for the body area. So I'm done securing this paper on the fabric. I'm going to use my pencil to mark the V point and also trace with the ruler, just so that I can get my V-neck, and then mark that part as well to trace my V-neck. I'm now going to use my scissors to cut out or trace out the V-neck. So I'm done cutting out the V-neck. What I want to do now is to use the bobbin pin to readjust this pattern on the fabric. And so this is what you have. The V-neck is already secured. I'm now going to implement the pattern that I had shown you earlier on at the beginning of this video. So I first off went to mark 4 inches from the upper part, 4 inches because of the sewing allowance, half-inch sewing allowance from the V-neck, and half-inch sewing allowance from the edge of the fabric, which will bring me back to 3 inches. So the original marking is 3 inches, but then I added 1 inch sewing allowance from the V-neck part and from the edge of the fabric, which will give me 4 inches. So I have now marked 4 inches on that part. So after marking 4 inches, I will now proceed to mark the depth of this pattern that would serve as a layover on the fabric. I'm making use of 18 inches long because the person's half length measurement is 18 inches. So I want that first drop to stop at 18 inches. So what I'm trying now to do is to mark 18 inches across on this brown paper, so that I can have the equal measurements by the time I'm done tracing out this pattern. I picked up my short ruler now to connect the dots that I had made on the brown paper, so that it just guides me to where my line stops from top to bottom. So I discovered that the brown paper that I had cut was not enough, so I decided to add extra brown paper underneath where the former brown paper stops with a paper tape, so that I can continue with my pattern that I had created or had in mind for this bubu design. So I have now drawn out the length of this pattern. I would now take the measurement across, so that it helps me to define the depth or the length of the pattern from the shoulder downwards to the half length measurement, which is 18. I want the line to be as straight as possible. That's why I'm going through these measurements from across the tip of the sleeves to guide me as to where the line stops. This is also a process in taking out the excess of the pattern of the brown paper that I do not need. So now I'm connecting it back to where that line stops. So having done that now, I now want to trace out the other patterns for this design. Now I'm trying to get the center of this design. I'm now going to mark the center points for this pattern so that it will help me in shaping out the lower area of the pattern. I'm doing this to get the center of this. You can see I placed the tape rule from the start of that line to the center of the V so that I can get the center. I've now gotten the center, and so what I'm trying to do is to draw a straight line from the center that I've gotten because of the slant that would have from the markings on that line where you have the 18 inches marking. Just follow me, you understand what I'm doing. So remember, there's a slant from point, I'll call that point B now, where you have 18. So I'm connecting the line now from, say, point B to point C, which is where that slant is. And now we're done with the slant. So we're going to move to the other side of the pattern now to define the lines. So I'm showing you the pattern now to see that to see what we've done, I mean progress. We're going to the other part now to define that part. So this part is 2 inches, but I'm making it 3 inches because of the sewing allowance, like I did with the other side. The depth is 8 inches, so I'm going to mark 8 inches, and yes, like we can see, it's 8 inches. So I'm going to mark 8 inches on that part so that it will help me to draw it out. But first, let me mark 3 inches across that part so that when I'm taking my ruler, I can just follow the lines. So I'm marking 8 inches, 8.5 inches rather, and 3 inches. So I'm now going to take my short ruler now to connect the lines. And bear in mind, it's 8.5 inches because of the sewing allowance on the shoulder. So this is the design again, this is the pattern again. You can see that, I mean, we're making progress. So I'm now going to mark the 6 inches that you can see in the pattern that I've drawn out for you, or that I've placed. You can see in this video that I'm showing you now, 6 inches. I've marked 6 inches. I'm now going to take my short ruler now to trace it from that point to where the 6 inches stops. So remember, there was a slant at the downward slope. I told you that I worked with this pattern. The length of where that sharp point is 22 inches. 22 inches is the navel point. 18 inches is the half length measurement. 22 inches is the navel point. So I'm now going to take the camera now. I'm showing you what I'm doing. From where I marked that 6 inches, I'm now going to connect it back to that pointy edge that you can see. I'm changing to a long ruler so it can cover up the area properly. So I'm going to draw out the slant now. And there you have it. So I'm going to take my scissors now and trace this out. So having traced this out, I will now take this to the fabric and cut this pattern out. I'm going to be cutting 2 of this, what I'll use to line and what would be the fabric that you would see. So the interface and the fabric itself. I'm sewing this now, trimming the edges. After trimming, I'm going to nudge that side so that when I flip over, it's easy for me. About flipping this over, I took this to the ironing board to iron out so that it's as smooth as possible when I place this on the main fabric. I use the steam iron when ironing this so that it makes this fabric as flat as possible for me. So I'm not going to take this now to the main fabric and pin down with the bobbin pin. You can see this is gradually taking shape for us. So I took my bobbin pin now to pin this down. After pinning this down on the main fabric, I'm now going to be sewing this down on the main fabric. I'm done sewing now. I'm now sewing the lining to cover up everything. So I'm sewing the lining across for the V-neck, the neck measurement at the back, and then I'm sewing the tip of the fabric as well as the sleeves. And voila, here you have it. I hope that you have been able to learn one or two things from this pattern that I've shown you. This is what our Bubu looks like. You can see the pattern that we sketched on the paper and transferred to the fabric. You can see how shiny, how neat this sewing is. I'm going to give you a close-up shot so you can see the sewing on the fabric. So I made a tutorial video on how to cut and sew Bubu with drawstrings and pearl. You can click on the notification that you can see now to watch that tutorial video. If you have any questions for me about this pattern, you can leave them down below in the comment section and I'll be willing to take them. If you haven't subscribed, now is the time for you to subscribe to Send Nightingale channel. Do not forget to like, comment, share to your database or contact. Thank you for watching. Keep creating magic. Bye bye.